The Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Dr. Fike?
Here.
Mr. Frund?
Here.
Mrs. Geyer? Mr. Lizza?
Here.
Mrs. O'Rear? Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mr. Shipley?
Here.
Mrs. Smith? Here. Mrs. Williams?
Here. Do we have any citizens' comments?
No.
The minutes. I need a motion to add meeting minutes to the 10/20/2022 voting meeting agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
Voting meeting.
Second.
We're voting. We're just moving them to the voting.
Superintendent's information.
Yes, I do have three things today. First of all, we are introducing a new board meeting format change that kind of groups items together a little bit differently. We also have a change to the reorganization meeting date from Monday, I believe it was December 5th to Wednesday, December 7th. And then my last item for today is a presentation, a short presentation I'd like to show on branding that we've been talking about administratively that we're going to need to go ahead and go down.
Okay. Let's go.
Okay, as this fires up, I'll kind of preface this with, since I was going to be really confused to come here to Southmoreland, one of the things that was brought up in terms of communication with the community was the talk of branding. And I do know that as I sat in the crowd prior to coming here, I do remember that branding was brought up on certain occasions before board meetings, saying that it's something to look at here at Southmoreland. So I'll tell you that as an IU employee, I didn't really hear anything about branding brought up in the IU, and I didn't really think twice about it until Dr. Conway there really drove home the fact that we wanted to make sure that if you know the IU logo there, shades of blue, and he drove him crazy whenever his employees did not use the correct shades of blue, to the point where we knew the actual numbers needed for the blue colors at the IU. So it was kind of drilled into us exactly what colors were needed. And as I came here to Southmoreland and I looked around at our facilities and our letterheads, presentations, website, if you go to our stadium, there's probably 5 different shades of red in that stadium area. If you look at the roof, you look at the walls, you look at the paint, there's all kinds of red going on there. So to me, this was something that we kind of need to go ahead and get a decision on before we start improving some of the facilities here within the district. So I'm going to go ahead and broadcast the presentation. But so, as I go through this, we're talking three things. We're talking about our official colors here in the district. We're talking about typography, and what I mean by that is our font, what kind of fonts we want to use on our official documents, and then logos. So So what I kind of did was I looked at the different districts across the county that have gone through this work already, kind of looked at their presentations. They vary in length. There are some districts that may have a 45-page presentation to go through in terms of branding. There are some that have about a 15 to 20-page presentation. And really, when I think about the work that we need to do here at Southmoreland, and we kind of just need to pare it down to cleaning up these 3 items, and I think we're in a really good spot. So first things first, if you look at our official district colors, and what we did was we looked at that academic crest, that logo that's in the bottom right-hand corner of the presentation. And, you know, using common technology, you can figure out what exactly those colors are. So anytime you talk about colors, there are numbers associated with it, and I'll zoom in here. There are hex codes and CMYK codes that no matter what print shop you take things to, it doesn't matter what programs they use, if you put those numbers in it, you will get that color red. So I heard a lot of talk as I came here and I started going through all the buildings about what Scotty Red was. And this would be Scotty Red right here. This came directly from our academic crest. So many of you have probably received letters and letterhead with a different shade of red. I would think moving forward, if it's the will of the board to have Scotty Red, this is what Scotty Red should be because it came directly from our crest. Now, black is black. You can't really get a change in what black looks like. So that was a pretty easy one. Same thing, white is white. Can't really get a change of what white is. But the other color that I've seen throughout the halls and in classrooms here is this gray color. So the recommendation that looks really good with that Scotty Red and the black and the white in terms of our secondary colors would be this color gray, and this would be the color gray moving forward that the recommendation would be to use this one. So necessarily, if I'm thinking about changing everything we have here currently, that's expensive. That's not the recommendation. The recommendation would be as we replace things and we change things over the years, that these are the colors we use. We think about painting walls red and adding more school colors, that this should be the red we get from whatever the vendor we use to get our paint so that we can go ahead and start looking uniform in everything we do. As far as fonts go, you know, we use Google a lot for everything, but I know that there's a lot of people who use Microsoft products. So it's important for us to have a font that works in both of those environments. We kind of looked at a traditional font that was kind of similar to what's in our Southmoreland in the bottom of that crest, and this would be the closest one. So moving forward in all of our letterheads, any official publications that are, you know, of school quality, any titles, any headings will have this font on it moving forward. So, and once again, it could be done in both Google, it could be done in both Microsoft. If you start out in Microsoft, you can't make it do Google, but you can make Google do Microsoft, so that's why we went that way. Now, I spoke about the academic logo. This is the one that's been around. This is the one you see with everything. When I walked into the CWCTC today, I saw this laser engraved on their wall and a nice shiny silver emblem. This is your traditional academic crest. This is something that you see everywhere. Should not change. This is the big block S that you see in most of our athletic attire. Also, if you're driving through the district and you see the signs for Southmoreland Elementary School and Southmoreland Primary Center, Southmoreland High School, that S, that block S is what starts the Southmoreland out. So this is the one that's most commonly used. Now, when we talked with the athletics committee, and we'll go back. When we talked with the athletics committee, we noticed that several of the booster clubs, if you look around, you have soccer, near and dear to my heart, that has a different logo. You have baseball that has a different logo. You have football that has a different logo. You have the marching band that has a different logo. And whenever you go through any kind of branding initiative, really, is to just build your brand and say, hey, whenever anybody sees this, they want to know that it's Southmoreland. So it should be the same for every group. Now, the athletic committee said, wouldn't it be great if we had these block S's that are used with athletics, but there to be some change for each sport. So for baseball, you'd have a baseball in the middle of the S. For a softball, you'd have a yellow softball in the middle of the S. Football, you'd obviously have your football and so forth. So for marching band, chorus, you have your musical notes, something like that. That was brought up with the athletic committee. That's something that we're going to look at getting our graphics students to develop and have a common look with all of those shirts moving forward. Now, this leads me to the last part, which I think this is the one, if you talk about a common logo across the district, I've seen several. And this is something that I think would need to be some kind of decision at the board level on what direction you want to go with this. So the one on the furthest left here is the traditional Script S Southmoreland logo that you see on a lot of shirts, you see on a lot of letterheads. I know I saw it on the side of the marching band trailer. However, yeah, I've started to see some of these Block S logos with the Scotty dog on it as well. And that's two conflicting kind of logos. So if you really want to talk about what a Southmoreland logo is, you can't have that many. You got to have one. When we talked about this at the athletic committee meeting, the thought was that second logo there, the head was bigger. What would it look like if there was a smaller head? So the graphics department made a logo with a smaller head, so you can kind of see the S a little bit more. And then there was thought in that athletic committee to think of having the Scotty dog head in the middle of the S, and what would that look like? So we had two options of that as well. I wanted to present this to the board so that you saw what the different options were that were developed within our graphics department, and to kind of have a conversation or discussion on moving forward how you would like to do this. Is this something that unilaterally as a board you would just like to choose one of these options? Is this something community-wide you'd like to have a vote on? I could easily put together a Google form and the community could vote on this. But however this moves forward, this would be something that, however the will of the board would like this to move forward, we can make happen as a district. However, it would be our recommendation to choose one of these instead of having multiple different ones going on throughout the district, representing what is going on here at the district. Okay? So, that being said, that's all I have to present. We can go ahead and discuss any of this up there, up at the board, or if you have any questions right now, I can answer them right now. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
I know, I changed it. She says roll call. Trying to. Yeah.
I think you should have the student body board on it. You know that. Have the student body vote on it. Don't you think?
So in terms of discussing that,
Yeah, communities.
I know I've heard a couple of you have some thoughts. So what are your thoughts in terms of?
I thought about maybe the student body should have something to do with it. You take community, but it doesn't matter. Yeah.
I would be open to having community input through a form, some way to kind of gauge interest in, what they would want.
And I can do a form so that people can only vote once.
So just like giving them those options of what they would want, or?
I mean, if you want to go back another level and open it up to submissions for what they think it should look like, but I think I like the idea of the students having created these, right? If I'm understanding that correctly.
There were some students who had a hand in making some of this stuff, yes.
I feel the same way. I don't want to be, I want the community to have a voice, mostly the students.
So
So do we narrow that down to a few choices and have the community pick? Or are we talking having them bring forth recommendations and then we pick so many from that and then sending out a Google Doc?
So I kind of like that you're taking what the school has traditionally been and just almost like perfecting it, tweaking it, making it all the same. Because I think that a lot of people who went to school here 50, 60, 70 years ago, like the emblem, the academic one you're calling it, I think that's what they like and they look for. So I think that we should keep maybe keep the academic one because it's been the traditional one and possibly make the one that's not so traditional. If we want to give community input, add it for that part of it, maybe.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I would keep the academic logo. That's what I would do. I think that's,
Yeah, I don't think that one was up for this discussion. I think that the crest was staying as the crest always was.
Okay.
And then,
Well, I didn't know if we were suddenly going back to the beginning. I didn't know what that meant.
so I think the point was getting everything to the one S so that it's the block S, the same S that you would see starting out Southmoreland or what you see on a letterman's jacket, that S, and then adding in the mascot somehow to that.
My concern is that there are several uses for a logo. I see a big difference between what's on the back of a football jersey and what's on a letterhead
Right.
that goes to the state.
That's the crest is what will still continue to be used.
So
at
we
all
have to
times.
define
Correct.
that this academic crest will still be the formal.
The formal, and not only define that it would be the formal, I would say define what formal even means.
Well-
So it used in all school letterheads, used in all official communications to the state, we can define what that would be. And then once that's done, it would be my recommendation even have, to have it easily accessible to our employees to use. Because right now, if any of our employees want to use any of our logos, they'll go to Google and type Southmoreland logo, and it's not officially our, it could be something that somebody drew that maybe looks like ours, but isn't necessarily our official logo. So the districts that have gone through this have their logos easily accessible on their website for any local print shop to pull off.
We need to define that there's a formal logo
Yep.
for administrative purposes for the school district, and then an athletic logo. They should not be the same.
Correct.
So I don't know who worked on this project, but having worked on it, do you think it would be better to have a bunch of different examples out there for people or to just start with nothing? Like submit your ideas. I feel like we could get a lot of stuff. Maybe give guidelines of we want the S with the Scotty dog. How do you see that coming? I don't know what.
And then I think from that, you narrow it down and then do a Google document.
Is that what you're talking about, Dwayne?
Yeah, I think, if we're going to do it, let's open it up, get as many examples as we can, and then narrow it down from there.
I can do so. Thank you.
Are you going to present it?
I do not. I have nothing else.
Solicitor information?
I do not have a report for the board tonight.
Business manager, transportation director information.
Yes, I have a few things for this evening. On last Friday, which was October the 7th, I attended the Midwest PASBO Business Manager meeting in Indiana, PA. Hannah Barrick from PASBO, who is the executive director, updated the group on what is happening in Harrisburg. We talked about staffing issues, budgetary issues, ESSER funds, and those school districts that are possibly going to fall off what they call the cliff, that used some of the ESSER funds to supplant versus supplement the school districts. Basically, one of the things that we did here in Southmoreland, I can tell you with the ESSER funds, we did a lot of supplementing versus supplanting, which will bode well for us in the future. On Monday, I attended the first in a series of PASBO training. It was in regard to basic ed funding regarding allocations. We discussed how the basic ed funding amount had remained relatively consistent since the 15-16 year, but the amount of the basic ed funding that is attributed to the formula had dramatically increased since the 15-16 fiscal year. And we went through a 150-page PowerPoint presentation. We were there for about 6.5, 7 hours. And I can tell you, this is basically, and I'll be sharing more of this type stuff with the board, working on some information that basically is going to be that has our district's information in it. But as you can see, the basic ed funding has remained relatively consistent, the base amount. However, the amount that is attributable to the basic ed funding formula has increased from the 15-16 year, which started out as 152, I guess theirs is in millions, but $152,398,840 to the $1,423,677,244 per year. And like I said, this is the amount that was actually distributed in the basic ed formulation last year. So my main concern in wanting to go was, what do they believe is going to happen for this year? Because the state obviously had some excess funds last year. Not sure that's going to happen again this year. And then on Tuesday, Mr. Haichu and I attended IDA fiscal training. It focused on compliance and uniform guidance. We talked about sole sourcing. We talked about maintenance of effort. We talked about contingency funding, all of those type things. I can tell you that I also had a conversation today with PFM in regard to financing with the bid that is coming in, and is going to be looked at next Monday on the 17th for the high school roof, masonry work, for preventative maintenance for the roof at the SES and SMS building. So they are basically working with me in regard to that information. Let's see. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
That was quick.
Moving on to policies, we have 2 agenda items. I need a motion to add them. Policy item number 1 and 2 to the 10/20/2022 voting meeting.
So move.
Move those. Personnel items, we have items 1 through 5. Any questions or concerns there? I need a motion to add them. Add items 1 through 5 to the 10/20/2022 voting meeting.
So moved.
Education, I have items 1 through 3. Any concerns? I need a motion to add education items 1 through 3 to the 10/20/2022 voting agenda.
Just do it. Yeah, move. It's fine.
Okay. Mr. Lizzo.
Anything you say. Sure.
Finance, I have items 1 through
Guess what?
4.
Something you drink.
Are there any concerns?
I was just wondering, the merchant processing system, can you explain that a little bit? Is that for a credit card, or I'm not sure?
No, I was actually asked by the high school because, for example, Mrs. Colbanks had been taking in a lot of cash and writing out personal checks to us. So they had asked if we could receive credit card payments. That's basically what this is. So we can set up credit card payments to do pay-to-plays, to do if somebody has to pay for Chromebook repairs, that type situation. That way it helps us not take in so much cash in the district.
Any other concerns? Okay, I need a motion to add finance items 1 through 4 to the 10/20/2022 voting agenda.
So moved.
Items number 6 and 7 are for informational purposes. They're the building activity fund information and the cyber charter expense analysis information. Buildings and Grounds, I have items 1 through 8. So some of these items we do not have information on yet. We will have that on Monday.
That is correct.
And that will be, obviously, the bids will be added to the agenda. Do I have a motion to add these items to the voting agenda on 10/20/2022?
So move.
Items 1 through 8.
You should be building grounds on here somewhere.
What?
This and something.
It's,
I think Dr. Fike has a question. There was a change in the groupings.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yours is out of
okay.
order.
Yeah, mine.
They were in finance, they were moved to buildings and grounds.
Because finance goes all the way through 16 or something like that,
Exactly,
with
right.
no headings
right.
in there.
And really,
Okay.
those items were primarily
That
just
was my
buildings and
question.
grounds ones.
Okay, thank you.
This one,
We are on athletics.
no, I'm just wondering if this one follows more how we are, or no? Okay, athletics and activities. We have one item. I need a motion to add athletics and activities item number 1 to the 10/20/2022 voting agenda. Need a motion.
That's fine.
So moved.
Thank you. Citizens' comments? Any citizens' comments?
Here we go again.
Dan Kiefer. On the logo item, I'd like to see if you would go back to when the school districts were combined between East Huntington and Southmoreland and look at what went on at that point. George Hazen was a friend of mine. I think he was the band director at that time, and he would often take pride in talking about the Highlander Fling and the bagpipers and the Scottish tradition, right? If you think about our neighboring school districts, we have Warriors and Cougars and Vikings and this stuff, but Southmoreland has a unique marketing factor if they would develop that, and I think that we've sort of given away to that cultural thing that George Hazen and the founders back then worked on to the Fighting Scot and just athletics. On another subject, I'd just like to give you one little data. Since Labor Day, 2.2% of Americans have availed themselves to the boosters. You'll see where I'm going with this real quick. In Europe, there's a wave of COVID coming, and it's been talked about now in the main press, and then typically 2 or 3 weeks after it hits there, it hits the United States. The COVID narrative that you guys have been parroting and going along with the effectiveness of vaccinations, the reasons for vaccinations, the masking, the distancing, the whole lockdowns and all that stuff. In my world, the house of cards has fallen tremendously. The safety of the vaccination, the effectiveness, and all that stuff. I don't have time to go into that now, except to point out that you don't have time to go into that because you just don't have any meetings that you should be having. So I'm asking you, how many here have got the booster shot? If we're 2%, and you're going to keep advocating the CDC when they come back in a few weeks, you should have had your booster by now, and you should be. That's your personal business, but I would expect you are going to practice what you're preaching. And I might have one more point. So again, then to close, then next month, don't be surprised if the CDC is asking you to shut down, mask, distance. And if you can't make a broad decision on that you're willing to stand up and discuss in public and say, well, I think the masks really were still a good idea. I think the vaccinations really were. And you don't put yourself out there for us. superintendents, presidents, board members. I'm just left to conclude that you're right where you were, and you don't have the ability, the desire to talk it over with the community. You're just going to follow the CDC again. And if you're a CDC fan, more power to you. So if you don't see where I'm going with this, I'll have my email.
Thank you, Mr. Kiefer. I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?